To understand and learn about Viking art, I first learned about the history of the culture and people. Many people often think that the Vikings were brutes, murderers, and not the type that were interested in art. This is not true. Viking art actually has a long and refined history and includes art venues such as paintings, sculptures, and pottery. But let's first get a sense of the history of these so-called barbarians. The term Viking is generally applied to medieval Scandinavian culture as it flourished between the 790s and roughly 1000 AD. The Vikings first began their attacks on England in 789. Vikings are historically thought to have been successful due to their skills as seamen and the excellent craftsmanship of their wooden ships. One of the seagoing ships, which was recovered from a 9th century burial at Gokstad in Norway, demonstrates the ingenuity and the effectiveness of the Viking ship design. Their ship's designs were fast, light, flexible, and maneuverable, which made them easy to launch and then breach. They were also designed to be able to be rowed or sailed in any wind. In 840, Viking settlers found the city of Dublin in Ireland. In 860, Rus Vikings attacked Constantinople, and in 862, Novgorod in Russia was founded by Rus Viking Erlik. In 866, Danish Vikings established a kingdom in York, England. Then in 900, the Vikings raided the Mediterranean coast. In 911, the Viking chief Rollo is granted land by the Franks and founded Normandy in France. In 981, Viking leader Eric the Red discovers Greenland, and in 986, Viking ships sail in Newfoundland waters. In 995, Olav I conquers Norway and proclaims it a Christian kingdom. 1000 brings about Christianity to Greenland and Iceland, and it is also the year that Leif Erikson, son of Eric the Red, explores the coast of North America. In 1010, Viking explorer Thorfinn Karlsefni attempted to found a settlement in North America, but in 1015, the Vikings abandoned the Vinland settlement on the coast of North America. In 1016, the Danes under Canute ruled England. Then in 1028, Canute, king of England and Denmark, conquered Norway. And lastly, in 1050, the city of Oslo is founded in Norway. So as we can see, the Vikings moved around quite a bit from around 794 AD into the middle of the 11th century. The Vikings were excellent tradesmen and known for being traders along their coasts. Between their trading ventures and liberating ventures, the Vikings traveled great distances by ship, therefore allowing them to experience firsthand various types of arts and crafts that they found along the way. During many of their attacks, they actually colonized their defeated opponents, again giving them access to new art forms and new knowledge of how to work with metals, stones, and other art media. Viking art, or Norse art, is a rather broad term that refers to Scandinavian peoples who lived during the Germanic Iron Age. Viking art can also eclipse into the Nordic Bronze Age, and this form of art is somewhat similar to what is in Eurasian, Celtic, and Romanesque art forms. In addition to their superior ships, the Vikings were also known for their expert craftsmanship of brooches, buckles, and knives. Much of their jewelry contains elements of Celtic art as well as elements from earlier Roman art pieces. One example of a Viking brooch is a piece from the late 500s. It is called Crouching Bird of Prey, usually identified as an eagle. It is made of copper alloy with silver overlay and thought to represent Odin, the supreme god of war and battle in Nordic mythology. Some more details about the brooch are as follows. The head and right leg of this elegant bird brooch are in the left profile, while its rounded body and flaring tail are presented frontally. The extended right wing curves behind the tail. The edges of the neck, wings, and tail, and the upper part of the leg are outlined with pseudo-beading. 9 stamped crayfish decorate the tail. The position of the head, supported by the raised leg, indicates that the bird is sleeping. The Vikings were also known for their high level of skill when it came to pottery. Many artifacts have been discovered showing that the Norse peoples understood not only the basics of pottery making, but also understood advanced techniques for pottery design and art forms. They also seem to have some skills in sculpture, although it was not as popular as the other art forms. In terms of sculpture, their skill at woodworking is prominent in both the ships that they built as well as in later pieces, especially those associated with the time during the 11th century when many of these people were converted to Christians. Much of this religious woodworking form is abstract in nature, composed mainly of animal forms and plant forms, often intertwined in detailed patterns and often seen in ancient churches and other buildings that hosted religious ceremonies. An example of the great art that adorned the ships is the animal head post from the Viking ship burial in Oseberg, Norway. The ship is more than 70 feet long, and the animal head is 5 foot high. As stated in our book in the chapter on early medieval Europe art, the Oseberg animal head is a powerfully expressive example of the union of 2 fundamental motifs of the warrior lord's art, the animal form and the interlaced pattern. It is quite amazing how detailed the woodworkers could take their design and craft of these beautiful ships and the art that decorated them. Another fine example of the skill of the woodworkers from the 11th century is the wooden portal of the stave churches at Ørnes, Norway. During this time, many of the Scandinavians had become Christians, but the artistic traditions prevailed as the religion changed. A stave is a wedge-shaped timber placed vertically. The portal and a few staves are almost all that remain from the church in Norway. It is wonderful to see just how intricate the designers could get with their woodworking. In 1904, an exceptional archaeological site was uncovered at Oseberg, Norway. It consisted of a profoundly well-preserved Viking ship that contained the remains of 2 women along with a wide array of accompanying grave goods. This vessel, which is widely celebrated as one of the finest finds of the Viking Age, had been buried within a large mound or hager. The Oseberg ship was built in western Norway around the year 820. It is made of oak, and each of the strakes overlaps the one below, and they are fixed with iron nails. Each side of the ship consists of 12 strakes or planks. Below the waterline, there are only 2 to 3 centimeters thick, which makes the ship's sides very flexible. The 2 upper strakes are a little thicker. The deck is made of loose pine planks. The mast is also of pine and was between 10 and 13 meters high. A good deal of Viking art were practical pieces, such as the bucket found in the Oseberg Viking ship burial. The bucket was one of several found on the ship. It was made out of yew wood and surrounded by decorative brass fittings, then held together with iron hoops. It was also found with a wooden ladle, and 6 to 7 wild apples were inside it. Also found on the Viking ship at Oseberg, Norway, was the famous Oseberg Buddha. Found on another bucket from the ship, the figure is sitting in the lotus position. This bucket most likely originated in Ireland, as the decorative motifs on the Buddha are paralleled in Irish artwork, most noticeably the Book of Durrow. This suggests that the bucket may represent booty captured during a Viking raid on Ireland. The Oseberg Viking ship and remains are available to view at the Viking Ship Museum in Oslo, Norway. There are also exhibits of the Gokstad ship, which was found on the farm in Sandefjord, and the Thun ship found in 1867 on the Netterhagen farm at Rolvsøy, near Fredrikstad. The Thun ship was the first Viking ship to be excavated and is still the third best preserved Viking ship in the world. Viking art seemed to evolve out of tradition and necessity, less from spectacle and frivolity. Their art seems to be very representative of their culture and beliefs, strong and stoic, yet in touch nature and natural elements of the earth. This is evident not only in the art itself, but in the materials they chose to use. The sophistication and delicacy of Viking art presents a striking contrast with the stereotype of the rude and restless barbarian. Vikings' love of poetry and riddling phrases, as well as tales of mythic events, has most definitely shines through in their culture and art.